People think being a 911 dispatcher is just a high-stakes customer service job. They think we are just robots with headsets, navigating car wrecks and noisy neighbors in a calm, detached monotone. But after 12 years in this chair, 7 of those on the graveyard shift, I can tell you that the real terror isn't the stuff found in the training manual. It is the calls that shouldn't exist, the ones that defy the logic of every server in the building. The graveyard shift changes your soul. It is not just the excessive caffeine or the flickering fluorescent lights that seem to pulse like a dying heartbeat. It is the specific isolation of a sleepy county that dies after 10 p.m. in the Midwest, when the winter humidity turns into a bone-deep chill that no heater can touch. The air gets thin. You are alone with the hum of computer servers and the low, constant white noise of human suffering. I was burned out. Existentially exhausted. I had become a human switchboard for other people's worst days, and I had stopped feeling anything at all. The calls were just blips on a screen, until the clock hit the deadest hour of the night. Research suggests that long-term exposure to secondary trauma can dull your reactions, but some people notice a sharpening of their intuition instead. About 3 months ago, at exactly 2:47 a.m., a line lit up that should have stayed dark. It was designated as an unregistered VoIP signal. No GPS, no address, just raw static. It sounded like listening to a radio submerged in the Great Lakes. Through the crackle, a child whispered, "A boy." He told me the man in the mask was back. He said his daddy was asleep on the floor and wouldn't wake up. My fingers flew across the keyboard, but the system kicked back nothing but errors. No location data exists for ghosts. The boy told me he was at the old Victorian at the end of the road. Even without a ping, I knew the house. It's a local legend, a rotting relic of a bygone era. I dispatched a car, but my senior officer reported the property was secure. Boarded up. Dust an inch thick. No signs of life for 50 years. But the calls kept coming every Tuesday. The screams through the headset were high and thin, like a sound being played backwards through time. I began spending my days in the library basement, scrolling through ancient microfiche. I found an article from 1975. A family slain. A masked intruder. And an 8-year-old son who vanished from an upstairs closet, never to be seen again. When I brought this to my supervisor, I expected a psych evaluation. Instead, I got a warning. He told me about the man who sat in my seat before me. That man had become obsessed with the same house and the same voice. He started taking calls that never appeared in the official logs. One night, he just walked out of the center and disappeared. His car was found parked at the end of that unpaved road, engine cold, doors locked, but the man was gone. My supervisor's advice was simple: if that line rings again, do not answer it. Some people suggest that ignoring the problem is the only way to stay sane in this line of work. You have to learn to terminate the line before it pulls you in. You have to realize that you cannot save everyone, especially those who have been gone for half a century. If you are interested in the unexplained side of professional life, subscribe for more stories. Some calls may help you understand the world, but others might just pull you out of it.